You're on.
Ready?
You're
All
on.
right. Welcome to WTF Us, where we talk about whatever the hell is going on in our country in a way where we try our best to be non divisive and to look at things from a factual perspective and to actually back up those facts whenever we can and correct each other when we don't know what we're talking about, which is part of learning and part of what this country could use. With us, with the water bottle and the headset, is John, our head MC, who runs the wonderful WWDBTV studio that hosts our show. And we're so grateful he's around and that he spearheaded this effort. And we have Dirk with the lovely mahogany wood background. They're both coming to us from Nevada, or Nevada, I believe they say. Uh, and Nevada.
It's Nevada.
They're coming to us from Nevada. From
It's
the
just like you don't say Frisco to somebody from San Francisco.
Okay,
Okay?
yeah,
All
they're
right.
from Nevada. I'm gonna try to train my accent. And Dirk is a wonderful human being and is joining us on the show too. He has lots of experience in the world and all things, and has a really good foundation of effort in our country, in law enforcement and in the military, to kind of offer ideas to the things that we talk about from that perspective that I don't have. I had for a moment. I was in the Air Force for a moment, and then I quit because I didn't want to kill people. And I'm Rachel, and Ariel is joining us here too. We're from sunny but not so sunny right now, California, bringing our West Coast liberal perspective to to everyone in Nevada and maybe elsewhere as well. And this week we're going to talk about what it means to be an American, what it means to us to be an American, as well as maybe what it hopefully can mean to everyone else. And we're going to just start off this week with a little chat about what everyone's been up to this week and how we've all been taking in all of the incredible amount of news and bad news and all over the place news. What do you guys think? Any updates?
Well, I'm thoroughly fascinated by the January 6th committee and how they seem to be actually doing something. You know, it may not be a lot, but at least it's something. And it doesn't seem to be just showy stuff. They're actually doing stuff and they're getting people to say what actually happened. So, I mean, if nothing else, I remember reading an article a couple of days ago and they were saying that they've already won just by the fact that they had this, that they have the hearings going on and that they've gotten people to admit what happened and what they saw and how certain people were acting. And I find that fascinating. I find
John?
it fascinating.
I absolutely agree with that, but I think that one of the key factors in their success or how they're coming across is that almost, as far as I know, everyone that they have had come before the committee has been Republicans, has been Trump supporters, his staff, the people around him. And so it's not a bunch of Democrats jumping on Republicans. It's the Republicans and Trumpers that are saying, guys, here's what really happened. So I think that
Well, not only that, but guess who's the person that's running it and asking most of the
that
questions
listen,
are Republicans as well.
if you want to talk about what it is to be an American, I think Liz Cheney is one of those people because she is putting the country before politics, before party, before anything else. And to me, that's what being an American is. It's what is best for all of us. Majority rules. We all said we got together and we decided that this is what we want, and we're not going to have seven people over here, making decisions for the other 100. And to me, that so I don't know. I don't agree with a lot of things that she's done in her career and over the years, but I think that she has stepped up and shown us by example, this is what we should be doing. That's what I think.
Well, this
Yeah.
whole thought that I had about what it means to be American actually was spurred by the hearings, because I kept thinking to myself, what person wants to vote for someone or have someone represent this country who embodies the exact opposite of what our Constitution says and, you know, our laws? I don't understand how you can do that and reconcile yourself and actually call yourself an American. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I feel like, what is it? You know, I think a lot of people might have been, I don't know, like, you know, Republican idealists or non-voter idealists, where they've just been like, oh, the country is just going along how it does, or I'm just going to keep voting this way because that's how I voted. But then, like, looking at the implications just this past 4 years and with the January 6th committee, what that actually meant was that women are getting their rights taken away, immigrants are getting their rights taken away, minorities here and poor people and underprivileged people are getting their rights taken away, people in southern states are getting their voting rights taken away, and we elected a leader, you know, that's now held accountable by this council of his peers. And I'm so glad that Cipollini, I just want to call him, I don't know, I know that's not how to pronounce it, but the onion guy, he just testified for 8 hours, you know, and I think that that's going to be key. And I think it's showing like a lot of people, and it sounds like a lot about like people that worked next to Hitler. Like, you know, at some point we were just in there beside him, and if we went against him, he'd kill us and destroy our families, kill our families. And if we couldn't speak out against him and we couldn't step away, we couldn't hide. And I think a lot of people with this committee are feeling empowered to finally be like, I worked beside this man. He was batshit crazy. He had a horrible temper. He threw things. He tried specifically to overthrow our democratic processes in our government. And we all went along with it because we were scared of him, because he had political clout and he threatened our careers. And we watched it go down. And now that there's like a light of hope that if we speak out, that will be heard and that will be protected from him and from someone like him getting power again. Like that, I feel like that's why people are coming forward, I think, because it's like they did see, and it's like people saying like, okay, I'm a Republican, I'm an American, but what does that actually mean to me? Does that mean that I want some crazy dynasty-driven, like, egomaniac running the country, making decisions that, like, maybe I like him, and maybe I like what he stood for, and I'm glad he pushed those Supreme Court justices forward, and I'm glad there's no more abortion, and I'm glad of these things, but what else does it mean for he could do anything else? What if there's a day that we put someone like that in power and he starts deciding things that I don't believe in, like going to war with other countries, like stripping away our environmental rights? Like, we want clean air, we want clean water. We don't want corporations to have free reign over everything, because we actually need to protect our quality of life, and that's for everyone here on Earth. And, you know, it's like, you know, like, what will it? Sorry, this is a rant, but yeah, like, you know, I think at some point, like, what does it come to? And it's like, if we want to break all the rules, if that's what America is, a country where everyone breaks all the rules and we let that happen, then what happens when they start breaking rules that you don't want them to break?
You know, take that to its logical conclusion. The problem wasn't that, it was him breaking the rules and doing whatever he wanted to do. And you didn't know, because he's such a mercurial personality and he's really not that smart. You don't know which way he's going to go, how he's going to feel. I'm going to do this because it's Tuesday. You know, you don't know. And if you have somebody making decisions like that for everybody, the chances are pretty good at some point he's going to screw over you.
I mean, I think they see that. I mean, Lindsey Graham getting subpoenaed in Georgia.
Yeah, I love that.
But I mean, that was the key state where like the federal government actually told Georgia in official memos that the federal government found election fraud in Georgia. So the federal government made fake documents, gave them to Georgia. Georgia decided they would elect a false slate of electors based on those fake documents that came from the federal government. This Clark guy that they wanted to make the attorney for the president,
Attorney General.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wanted to out Jeffrey Rosen and put this guy in. It was him that constructed this genius letter to Georgia, and Lindsey Graham and a bunch of senators stood by, and it's like now Georgia is trying to hold them accountable, their own elected officials.
Yeah.
And and he's saying it's a witch hunt. I'm not going to come, and it's kind of like, you can't do that. Like you can't do that so many times where it's like, no, actually you participated in something illegal, and the fake news that it's a witch hunt and that everyone's just like, that was already proven false. And so it's like, at some point, people that are only listening to like American News Network or Fox News or whatever, and they're just not, and they're like in a hole so big that they can't, like they don't know what's actually going on. Like at some point, like there's gotta be holes pierced in that roof, What was that, Dirk?
They don't want to know what's going on.
Because
But I'm like, I like to think it's fewer and fewer people that are able to avoid seeing what's going on, especially when people that were their own representatives, people that are in their own party are stepping forward. And a lot of these people are old. A lot of these people remember JFK's assassination. I'm not saying you guys are old, but they remember JFK's assassination. They remember Nixon. Like that happened before I was alive. But like if I had lived through that and then saw this, that would be like, wow, I saw this and this is happening again. This isn't out of the lines of what's possible.
Yeah, that's kind of the entire thought process that you just talked about. That's really what led me to ask that question, because I really think the first word that popped into my head was shame, but I don't think it's that, and I don't want to use that word because I don't want to attack other people's integrity or whatever, but I really think there's a lot of people that were Republican that saw all this stuff that's going on, and they feel a sense of, say, sadness, if nothing else, that the country has come to this, that certain people are doing certain things. And I don't care if you're conservative or not, you're Republican or not, you look at this and you go, this is not the America that I believed in. This is scary. And for these people to actually keep pushing this agenda in my face and telling me that and the other aspect of that too is that a lot of these Republicans that are surrounding Trump are basically telling people, if you don't vote this way, you're not American, you're not patriotic, you're an idiot, and we're going to come after you and we're going to attack you. And that's what they've done. And I think a lot of people look at that and say, whoa, hold on here. That's not my country.
This is bullying tactics 101.
Exactly.
I mean, patriotism is pretty much always used to manipulate people pretty effectively. As far as, the American identity, I don't know if my sense of that has shifted over the course of the January 6th Commission, but I think that, the perception potentially, or perceptions around America, have some possibility of doing so, particularly the fact that, or like the notion that that we're a democracy in name only, and that really we're an oligarchy, and that we're kind of kidding ourselves by thinking that we're like the world's leader of democracy when our government is clearly massively corrupt. So I think that if some actual consequences come out of this, then it'll be nice to show both for Americans domestically and for our image around the world, that despite all of our corruption, we are actually able to hold our leaders to account to some extent. Because I think that there's definitely a general perception of America that we like wave this flag, but that we're pretty full of it. So it would be nice to have some evidence that we are actually somewhat of a democracy.
It's fascinating to me. I remember being in when I lived in Europe, and I used to talk to a lot of my European friends, and it was fascinating. They could actually tell you. I remember this specifically. If I remember correctly, it was Richard Daley, his son, running for mayor of Chicago, and they knew the American politics, who was running for office in all these major American cities, who's running for the states, who's running for the national office. They knew all that stuff, and I knew some of the airmen that worked for me didn't know this themselves, not even in their own home state, in their home city. And I find that absolutely fascinating. And to take your point a step further, Ariel, it's incredible to me that there are probably more people in Europe and other places in the world that understand and have read our Constitution more so than Americans have. And so the reason I bring that up is because they're looking at our country and they're going, these guys are a bunch of fucking hypocrites. They're always jumping on everybody else's ass. They're sending their armies in to do this and do that and enforce this and enforce that. And yet they won't even do the exact same stuff that they're trying to make other people do in their own country.
Well, and I think that we have to remember that people like Mitch McConnell, who is basically one of the puppet masters. I mean, his strategy has helped put us in the situation that we're in. I mean, look what he did with the Supreme Court. I mean, to me, he's responsible for what we have on the Supreme Court right now. Because if he hadn't blocked Garland's nomination there, right?
I was just thinking of like the yellow brick road, and then you said Garland and the man behind the curtain. And I was just like, I think for the past, since Vietnam, I feel like everyone was like, okay, this was a major fuck up. Our military screwed up. Like, we got to just turn it down. And people just kind of looked different directions. Like Carter happened, Nixon happened. But it was kind of like, okay, our meddling in foreign affairs were these different types of wars, like the Gulf Storm, it was like these corporate oil wars, and for military contracts. And it was kind of just like people were like, okay, and a new generation was born. The media started pitching things not to the baby boomers, but to another generation. And I mean, and it's sad, but it's like the people that remember the Vietnam War, I think there was a big effort. Like when I grew up, I didn't hear about how horrible that was and how divided that made the country. And I didn't really it hadn't been that long ago. It was when my father was 18. It was not that long before, 30 years before I was born. And it was just like that. I think that was like a blemish in America's record. And a lot of people didn't want to talk about it. A lot of people were traumatized, and whatever America stood for kind of went down the tubes after that. It was like, what the hell are we doing? And I think, in building it back up, it's like, oh, America is consumerism. America is everybody has a pickup truck. Everybody has a gun. Everybody has a picnic on 4th of July. That's what America stands for. It's like hot dogs and corn on the cob and picnics. But like, what is it? And I think because our military passed and our participation in our military, which was once something to be proud of, like when we stepped in and World War II happened, it went from something to be proud of to something to kind of like not be proud of. And it went from like something to be proud of to be an American even. I remember I participated in youth government in high school, and being an American wasn't cool. Like being proud of the flag wasn't cool. And because I went to like mock government camp, which was pretty cool. But we learned about our history. We learned about the flag. And I realized, like hanging out with my great grandmother, that she was a daughter of the American Revolution. Like my family's been in this country for a really long time. And I think that there's this country has been a mixed bag of like genocide against the native people of this land, and also been a sanctuary for people to come to get away from genocide in their own countries, to come here to believe what they want on the backs of people that they've destroyed to dominate their land here because they weren't Christian. You know, and I think there's a big, there's a law about like, you know, when is it okay to take away the land of people and to say that it's yours if they're not Christian? And that rule of reasoning was decided for like what happened in this country. And I feel like,
Well, if they're not Christian, they're heathen savages.
yeah, they don't deserve to have a say.
They're subhuman.
Manifest destiny.
They're subhuman. That's
By jingo.
yep.
You know, and I think like in trying to look at how to be proud of this country where we all live and we all call home, whether by choice, whether we were brought here as slaves, whether we've always been here and someone took over the land and started calling it theirs. And I think like we're at a moment in time where, again, that core value of like, what is our value as people, not just as a country, but like, what's our value as human beings? Like, can we all agree on morality? Can we all agree on decency? Can we all agree that like, I might want something different from myself and my family than you and yours, and I want you to have what you want, and I also want to have what I want. And is there a way that we can come together to make some basic guidelines that are fair and moral, while at the same time allowing us to practice living our lives in a way that's as free as possible, given some, you know, it's challenging, like given some constraint and some agreement on like, you know, we're going to agree to drive on the proper side of the yellow line for all of our well-being. You know, can we agree? Is there basic human values that we can agree on that we can then apply to our government?
But the problem is, I think the biggest roadblock to us being able to do that is the fact that we refuse to look at the past, acknowledge the past, and then move on.
Well, I think a lot of people, you kind of get two camps generally when it comes to the American identity. You have the America's great, I'm an American, so I'm great camp. The big foam number one finger. Growing up Jewish and part Native American, I was never really part of that camp. I was never down. I never said the Pledge of Allegiance, which caused some friction. But I'm like, I'm not pledging my allegiance to a flag or making myself subservient to some power that I never agreed to. I never really had a strong sense of being an American or that identity until I went abroad. And living abroad, you kind of find what flakes off of you as far as elements of your culture that you maybe thought were conscious decisions and what actually stays and is more core and central to you. And I found that the freedom thing for me, right, is core. And I feel, and also seeing the American flag waved in Hong Kong on New Year's Eve in 2020, alongside the Liberate Hong Kong flag, just seeing that for all the fucked up shit that we've done, that we're still the symbol of freedom and democracy.
At our core.
At our core, despite all of our history, despite all of our hypocrisy, recognizing all that, the fact that that is still, that those ideals of really freedom and democracy and the fact that we're a melting pot and have all the good food in the same city, like that's to me the core of the American identity.
And then I think we stand against and protect other people whose rights may be taken away.
When
it came to Hong Kong.
When it comes down to it, yes, we do.
And that we'd like to more too, if it's not China, clearly, you know.
I mean,
yeah, we do when it's not inconvenient
for us. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or militaristically. I mean, it's like the world's a delicate balance, you know, so it's like we can't do everything, but at the same time we can do something. And I think something that's big with what we're seeing now is like, okay, all the things that have been swept under the carpet are out on the table for everybody to look at. Like, you know, Black Lives Matter brought that about. Occupy brought that about. Like normal everyday people, even people who live under a rock, saw a little bit about the history of our country. they saw a little bit about where we've come from and what we're going towards, and at least put it out there enough for people to be like, you know what, I stand for that, or I don't. And I think now's the time more than ever. And I mean, Biden said this when he just signed his executive order to try to protect women's rights. He's like, I can't do this alone.
Right.
We need this many votes. We need two more senators. We need to keep a solid hold in the House of Representatives, because whether or not you like it, Americans, your vote can still count right now in this moment. Although we've tried to take it away and we've tried to gerrymander it, and we're going to sign away your vote in some states, even more reason for the rest of you to come out and actually vote. Everybody who doesn't vote, everybody needs to come out, because this is the way we can change our country. It's the way that we've nudged our country forward from like totally backwards discrimination and racism against Black people and women and pretty much everybody other than like white people, rich white people. You know, like, we can do it, and we can still do it, and we still have a constitution. But it's kind of like, now's the time, you know. And I think in the face when America really shines is when people realize, like, holy shit, we actually have to get off our asses and stand behind this common cause.
Yeah.
And now's the time, you know. Now really is the time. And we see, like, oh, our involvement in world politics is limited unless other countries join, like with Ukraine. Like, how can we do it alone? We can't. Our goal to like change our government is totally not going to work unless we all vote, unless we all come together behind something and we protest and rally and have a unified view of, we want to protect people's rights, even if that meant, and I think that's like the Christian short-sightedness, is like, you know, like John mentioned a cartoon that he saw, but it was like, you know, I want to be in a country where I can do what I want with my rights, but I want you to do that with your rights too.
Right.
It's like, you know, that we can't have both.
I mean, I think everyone wants freedom. Everyone in America, I think, wants freedom with some reasonable restrictions. It's just a question of what we consider those reasonable restrictions to be. I think on one side, you consider reasonable restrictions being like, you can't dump poison into the water and air.
Right?
And I can play my music as loud as I want.
Yeah,
But
so one side basically
I'm gonna
wants
put the
restriction of
headphones
the,
on.
like, one side I think wants restriction of like the corporate financial sector, and the other side wants restriction of the social sphere, and of behaviors that may go against their perception of their Christian values.
But we've been taught that. That's something that, I mean, when you're a kid, I mean, I know when I was a kid, none of that mattered. You know, your neighbors, your friends, your you know, that's who you went out and played with, and that's who you know, that was your crew, if you want to call it that.
Yeah,
And
it's your neighbors, right?
Right, and then people start saying or teaching you, well, no, don't do that, that's bad, or this is bad. Well, maybe it's bad to you, but it's not bad to this group over here, or it's not bad to this group over here. This is just something that you believe, that you want me to believe, so that you'll feel better. Something like that.
Well, I think that it occurred more when we started saying, when people started feeling that they wanted to do whatever they wanted to do, they didn't care. Because when we were growing up, everybody in the neighborhood, our neighborhoods worked together. I mean, it was like, you know, if you messed up and you went on Mr. Gilmore's lawn,
Yeah.
Mr. Gilmore would come out there, he'd spank you, or he'd tell your parents and they'd spank you, whatever, you know, but it was a neighborhood. We all played together. We all did things together. We had block parties. We had all that stuff. And then more and more Americans started becoming more isolated. You know, people nowadays don't know who their neighbors are. They don't know who the kids are that are wandering around. They don't know any of that stuff. And so they feel like they can do whatever they want to, and they don't want you telling them that they can't do it. So there's no sense of, let's work together and make everything great for everybody. We don't have that anymore.
I mean, they took away that. I mean, my parents used to tell me about like sitting around the radio and everybody listened to the same stories.
Right.
There was a shared culture and everyone listened, you know, and there was a shared news and everyone watched it. And I mean, I think that having that is scary, like in the case of North Korea and China, where like everyone watches the same scary indoctrination. But I feel like that same media has been used to pit people against each other here purposefully to split people up, you know, and I don't think that that's recognizing it from the back end. It's like, well, shit, now we hate each other because we've been told to, because we've been told our neighbor doesn't agree with us and therefore they're not humans, and we haven't ever had a conversation with them or baked them a pie or gave them an egg when they were cooking in a snowstorm and ran out. Like, to know that they're just normal and they're just people and that we actually could care about them, even if they don't go to our church or even if whatever it might be. Like, you know, that thing that reconnects us to each other, we desperately need that. And we need, I mean, like, really these scoundrels that own the media that keep like pitching up this fight. Like, it's not nice. It's not kind. It's not beneficial. And it's sad, like, that people for a profit are willing to like destroy humanity's love for one another.
That's the interview that Rupert Murdoch just did, where he said, you know, hey, we're in business to make money. That's what Fox News is. We are an entertainment company. And
wow.
Pardon me?
I said, wow, I didn't see this interview. So.
Yeah, like a few days ago. And he said that that's what we're here for. We're here to make money. And if we told the truth, we would lose the base. We would lose our viewers and we wouldn't make money. So this is why we do what we do the way we do it. I mean, he just flat out says that. I mean,
yeah, it's true.
I know it's true.
Well, at least he's telling the truth, but he's not telling the truth on commercials on his network.
Right.
As far as the community thing, I think about this a lot. There was this sinologist, Joseph Needham, who at some point posed the question of, you know, China kicked ass for so long throughout history. At what point did they sort of fall behind the West, having invented pretty much everything? And my general theory is that it's the cultural value of respect for the past and respect for one's elders that ultimately has discouraged innovation and free thinking in China to a point where America's general disrespect for the past and tradition and our independence and our individualism has sort of encouraged creative free thinking and looking at new ways of doing things in ways that have been in many ways massively beneficial to us, but have also potentially left us bereft of a deeper sense of community and of connection with our neighbors. So, you know, our individualism certainly has advantages, and I love the freedom, but at the same time, we've got, you know, epidemics of drug use and just people being depressed and disconnected as sort of the flip side of that.
Well, what has America done in the last 20 years? What have we accomplished? What have we created? I mean,
movies.
And Facebook, Google, Twitter,
the internet.
Instagram.
But I mean, we went to the fucking moon, you know. We created a highway system. We you know, we split the atom. We did all.
And we did make a really badass tennis court sized space satellite to find life on other worlds.
But we haven't done anything. We haven't done shit. We haven't created anything. We haven't participated in our own lives. I mean, well,
I think for a long time we haven't really been. Yeah, we're potentially the world leader in two ways: militarily, because we have a lot of military weight that we can throw around, and as far as media. And I think the media is potentially the bigger one, because that's how our culture actually has major impact around the world.
Right.
Although it was interesting last year to see China not allow a single Marvel movie in, which was for China a pretty huge deal. I think you know, we've stopped being leaders of invention for the most part, but we still hold a lot of sway culturally on the international stage just from Hollywood.
I mean,
imagine what we could do with that power.
I mean, Facebook is not insubstantial, and Twitter is not insubstantial. Like, in terms of communication internationally. And I mean, Facebook itself as a company has like taken down several governments, has started revolutions in other countries because of the division that it seeded when people got that app. And so it's like, yeah, you don't think we've done anything, but I mean, I don't think it's good, but we've definitely created a monster with what we've done with interconnection with social media and the lack of care, the lack of caring and the lack of protecting people from false information.
Do you think that any of those revolutions that took place with the help of Facebook needed to be okayed by the CIA?
I have no idea.
Like, do you think that that would have been promoted on Facebook if it was something that the American government had not felt okay with?
That's kind of
interesting concept,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's something that I assume all the time.
Along that same line, there's an ad that's going around in Nevada, in Las Vegas, and I'm sure you've seen it, Dirk, about the tech companies, and how Congress is taking away our jobs, and if this bill passes, it's going to give China all of the power, and I just happened to see on the screen this ad was, the supported by or paid for by blah 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 blah, this company, and so I just thought, I don't know what they're talking about. Let me go figure it out. Well, it turns out this company that has put this ad out was funded 100% by Facebook. And it's basically, it's an anti-technology kind of, it's a tricky kind of thing, because if you're not paying attention, it sounds like they want you to call our senator and say, don't vote for this, and because it's going to ruin jobs and take all our jobs away, and China's going to take over the country if you do this. And
the thing is, with this country, we have two religions that we follow. We follow Christianity to the fact that almost to fanaticism. And the other one is monetizing everything.
Yeah.
Capitalism. And those two things have led us on a course that is so self-destructive right now. I'm not really sure what we're going to do about it. It's kind of scaring me a little bit. I find it fascinating that the founding fathers could come up with a document that's so brilliant as the Constitution, and that they came here to get away from tradition, the traditions in England and the monarchy and all this other stuff. And we're using those other two things, the religion and capitalism, to tear down all those things. That's the way I look at it. That's how I feel.
I need some help with this one, okay? And this is kind of along that same line in the capitalism idea, that the people who have money didn't create anything. It's all smoke and mirrors, and buying stocks and leveraging this with that and all that shit. By the way, Elon Musk is backing out of the Twitter deal. But anyway, so
he did create some stuff.
No,
but he already had money.
He already had money. His father was owned diamond mines and shit, or jewel mines, and he just went in and bought stuff. But so somebody please explain to me two things, right? Cryptocurrency and fucking NFTs.
We can have a whole show on that.
It's just like, are you shitting me?
But it's like this. It's like the stock market.
Yeah,
this is capitalism comes up with all these fascinating ways of inventing money for rich people.
Money for nothing. Wait a minute. It's money for nothing, chicks for free.
Exactly.
Is that the American dream?
Right, it's all smoke and mirrors, man.
But I got all of these reasonably intelligent people that I know talking about the NFTs, and they've got this big, and one of them is the former attorney general for the state of Nevada, and he's having these NFT parties, you know?
Okay,
I
so
mean,
a brief. Go ahead.
I was just going to point out that, I mean, our American paper money is just pieces of paper with some talismans drawn on them. And we agree that these crazy talismans make this somehow have value. You know, money is just a consensus of agreed value,
Right.
unless it's something you can eat or drink or smoke.
So cryptocurrency. There's a lot. It's a very big topic, but in essence, it was created by a bunch of people that had no money, who believed in the idea of having a decentralized currency
Right.
backed up by algorithms where you can prove your transactions through a consensus protocol that everyone who has it holds. So they pretty much tried to come up with like an incorruptible money, Bitcoin, with a limited and a finite supply like gold, and that people would buy into and invest in mining it on their computers in order to have some, and anyone could do it, and that it would pretty much create like a way to hold value that are held by people rather than banks and governments. And that would be stable based on its use and its by its limited supply by those that hold it. And I mean, I think that the people that are biggest in the cryptocurrency movement are very big on creating money that isn't able to be taken by your bank or held by your bank or stolen from you by your bank or by your country when they shut it down and say that you can't have access. And I very strongly believe that something like that is necessary and can and could be awesome. NFTs are digital art that's created in a way where you can track its usage and where the artist actually gets paid for its use.
Kind of like copyrights.
Yeah, like copyrights that you can track, that you can continue to make money off of, because as an artist, I also feel like, who knows, you know, there's no way to like prove ownership. So it's actually kind of like giving artists a way to create something in a world that's virtual that we all very much use nowadays, that can be tracked and has ownership and can have value. And so, I mean, I think that there's a bunch of abuse in the cryptocurrency market, and in general, like whenever there's a place to make money, people will come in and try to take advantage. But I don't think that makes what it is in essence anything bad.
No. I understand the birth of it and the concept behind it, but it's just like everything else that we've touched. We fucked it up, and we're going to continue to fuck it up, and until somebody slaps us upside the head, which I think happened 4 years ago, and now a lot of us are going, wait a minute, you know, we need to do something here. At least
Yeah, and I mean, I think
that's
that
what I'm
SEC
hoping.
is trying to regulate. I mean, I think there's a bunch of countries are trying to ban it, like China, because it actually is scary for government to actually have people have control, and that's exactly why people need it and want it, because
Right.
there's these governments that will take and hold your money from you based on what you do, and people want to actually protect their assets in a way where their government can't seize it. And it's not just criminals and drug dealers, it's actually like human beings that want to feel like you can own something and that it can be safe and that it's not subject to the whim of a government taking it or inflating it. And so I think hopefully when, like, you know, when there's enough regulation, which people don't want to regulate it, but to regulate companies that are offering leveraged loans where people can kind of overextend themselves and lose their assets. Like, I think there's things like that that have been tanking the market over and over again in that regard, and that needs to not be something that can happen. It's like letting people borrow against their holdings and reinvest that, and it's kind of taking people's money away, and people are getting scammed. And they're scamming themselves. They're agreeing to do it, but I don't think they understand the implication of
and that's the key, and that's where some of these people are taking advantage of the average uneducated American who it is, ooh, it's shiny kind of thing. And I want some of that.
Yeah, and I think everyone should have some of that. They shouldn't borrow against it, and then have such a strongly leveraged position that they get liquidated and lose their assets. I think it'd be great if everyone had 1% of their portfolio was in a decentralized currency that was run by human beings, or not even run, that it was run by a consensus among all holders and safe in that way. Like, it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if people are going to take power back from ridiculously overbearing governments and corporations, like, that's a way.
So, but the only at this point in time, if you don't own a computer, you're kind of screwed. How can you mine for Bitcoin if you don't own a computer?
Well, at this point, not a lot of people are mining and more people are holding, but you can go to a Bitcoin ATM and put cash into it and get a Bitcoin receipt that has your Bitcoin wallet address on it and your code. And as long as you keep that piece of paper, you have that, and you can take
Right.
it back to that
And,
machine.
and you
Yeah.
don't lose it.
Yeah, as long as
So-
you have it
so-
and you don't lose it.
So you have a piece of paper with some talismans on it that other people agree.
Yep, exactly. And except that the other people agreeing that that has value
Right.
isn't the government.
Right.
And isn't
no,
the
I
IMF.
get
It's
that
actually-
part of it. I
It's
absolutely.
other human
Democracy.
beings.
What's that?
Yeah.
That's democracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, other human beings are participating in a mutually agreed illusion that this piece of paper with numbers on it has a value.
Yeah, I get it. So,
Being an American, I guess sometimes makes me feel like living in a home and you've got bipolar parents. You don't know how they're going to act from one day to the next.
Yeah.
the problem is you've got all your aunts and uncles and cousins and in that house too that you have to watch out for. So.
Yeah, and so you have people that are on edge because they don't know how the head person is going to act. So you don't know if it's going to be dad one day or mom the next day. So you're a little nervous about it, and everybody else is a little nervous, and so you act a certain way, and then all of a sudden, bam, they make that switch, and you go, oh shit, I got to act this way today.
Yep.
Anyway, that's how I feel. That's how I felt almost my entire life growing up in this country. It's like sometimes there's just some amazing things that happen here. Watching Americans work together for certain things and at certain times. And then there's other times you go like, what the fuck just happened? Everybody is at ends with each other. They don't want to talk. They don't want to discuss anything. I'm right, you're wrong. It's amazing.
Well, I think it's a big problem when people associate with a team rather than the human race as a whole. And I think that that's a big, as we're talking about the American identity, that I think nationalism is a huge problem. And it always bothered me when I was in China. The first question people would ask me usually was like, like, what country are you? Or like, like, what place do you belong to, basically? And the notion that you're subservient, or like that you are a country, or that you are of a particular place, that you're somehow subservient to that governing entity, I think is so somewhat psychologically poisonous, as opposed to recognizing that we're all just a mixture of rain and dirt and sunlight, basically, and that we're growing out of the same rock. So, I recognize everyone comes from a place, everyone's participating in the government and the culture of that place. But when we start to connect or relate to that as our core identity rather than a creature that was spontaneously generated by the planet, I think that we get into some major problems and wars and whatnot, isolationism, and nothing good happens after that.
One
We
of
could-
my favorite.
We could talk about that literally for hours, because you're absolutely right. That's the issue. Everybody feels like they have to identify with something specific. And because they do that, it makes it harder for them to look at other people as just as human as they are. They just feel a different way because they're from a different place. I mean, with our country, you can't even get people from the same from different states to agree, and we're one country. So you can just imagine how it is everywhere else.
Hey,
It'd be nice to be humans, to all acknowledge, oh wait, we're all humans. And like when you look at animals, even just animals, they protect their offspring. They tend to like care for the people close to them. They want to survive. They want to thrive in the environment.
To you guys. I have to apologize to you guys. First of all, I want to say Rachel did a really good job of kind of keeping this together. But when I first decided I wanted to talk about this, it was a little bit different because in my mind I had all these things going in. But when we started talking about it, I realized how emotionally based all my feelings are about being an American. I have so many conflicting views and feelings, being in the military, being a police officer, being a black man in this country. There's just being a father of 4 daughters. There's just so many things that I look at that affect how I feel and what's going on now that it was really hard for me. There were a couple of times I was trying to make points and I kind of rambled on. I didn't really make the point I wanted to because I feel so strongly about it. And I had a hard time finding the right words to explain how I felt. So honestly, we could have talked about this all day.
how do you feel, Dirk?
I don't know. But like I said, I feel like being in a bipolar home.
It doesn't matter how you feel because we all
Yes, it does.
No, listen, we all feel the same way. So whatever you're feeling, you can rest assured that there's plenty of us out there that feel the same way.
It does matter how you feel because if we all feel the same way, we should be able to work together. But that's not the case.
And we can. If
we don't all feel the same way. Some people are very strong about I'm American. This is what America stands for, even though they've been brainwashed because they didn't even know the history.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about just the 4 of us.
Oh, good.
So, no.
Well, yeah.
I thought
that's why we do the show together.
I
We're
know.
all friends.
I was like, I wish we all felt the same way too. I'm thinking what you're thinking, Dirk. I'm like, well, shit, if we did all feel the same way, it would be.
This dude has lost it. What the hell?
But I do feel like as human beings, there are some core things that we actually all feel the same way on.
Right.
In terms of caring about the people that we're close to and wanting our families to do well. And if we could just extend that to more of humanity and to see how that should be extended to each other beyond our nuclear family, beyond our personal religious beliefs, that like we all actually really want to do what we feel passionate about.
Yeah.
Like, and if I want to do this and you want to do that, that for me to be able to do what I want to do with my life, I also have to say that you should be able to do what you want to do with yours. And I think that like time and time again, people in this country have fought to protect that, have fought to advance that, to give that freedom and that ability to do that to more people. And it's never been perfect, but I feel like we've pushed forward to make that happen. And these wacko Supreme Court justices just stepped that back in the wrong direction. And I feel like we can together, I hope, vote to step it forward in the right direction again. Because I do feel like more Americans stand for that than don't.
When it comes down to it, I agree 100%. I think you're right. So, hey, but we're out of time again, kiddo. Oh, and I think Ariel had one last thing to say.
I was just thinking, as far as what we can all agree on, I think that we can pretty much generally agree that sentient creatures dislike suffering and like happiness. So it might not be much, but that should provide us a fundamental guidepost to make our decisions. And if we're not making our decisions based on that, then, well, I think anything else is cowardice and or idiocy.
I agree.
Let us pray.
Wrap this up.
Thank you, Lord.
Till next week, guys. This has been a great show. Everyone take care of yourselves. Don't be a dick and try to spread the love because we all need to connect with our neighbors to convince them that we're all humans.
All right, guys. See y'all
Love
later.
you guys.
Bye.
Yes.
Love you too.
Okay.